Hello, my name is Jolene Stevens. I am the founder of Practically Magic. I also host the Travel Owners Collaborative and the Travel Advisor Collaborative. If you are not part of those are Facebook groups. They are free to you, and just go ahead and look them up. There's a couple of questions that they'll ask, and then you can hop in with us. We typically have speakers and book club and focus on relevant information and learnings that go right along with running your travel business. So again, today we're going to be talking about communicating with your client. This is specifically about how to use itineraries, guides, and the Practically Magic tool and communicate with your client with what your client needs. If you've been with me before, you've heard me say this time and time again. Setting expectations is fundamental to our success and to our client's success, right? We do lots of things as travel agents. We make sure that we are getting the right accommodations, the right tickets, the right excursions for our clients, but also an important part of our business and what we need to bring to our clients is making sure that they have the correct expectations for what they are about to experience. So whether that is they're going on a cruise and they're going to need to disembark in a certain way, all the way to how to make your first lightning lane. So today we're going to talk about Walt Disney World and about the things that I would communicate with my clients. A little background on me. I used to own a authorized Disney vacation planning agency. I did that for 9 years. During COVID, I looked at my processes and found that I was still spending a lot of time creating itineraries and guides. And I wanted a tool that was going to help me save time, but also something that was really easy and clear for my clients. So that's where Practically Magic came from. So as we go, we talk about client communication. Obviously, there's tons and tons of communication that you do, from marketing to getting that quote to your client to booking your client. So I today am going to be looking at kind of that booking the client and then what comes after. So when we talk about we book our clients, what do we send to them next? So I know this has probably changed since we don't need to do park reservations anymore, but when we book our clients, typically what we're sending them are things like their confirmation or their receipt for that deposit that they've just put down, whether that's the $200 deposit or the deposit and insurance. And then what else do you send them? Many times, a lot of you have email automations set up in your CRM, and you send them maybe an email that has their dates, the dates that they need to book dining, their final payment date, their departure date. So those are really good things. Other things that people mentioned are things like sending them information about transportation, sending them information about magic bands, all of those sort of things. And right, that typically happens with email or a conversation. That is just the beginning, or just kind of the start for me of when I start providing something with Practically Magic. And when we talk about dining and activities, which is that kind of next step, I need to communicate to my client prior to that 60-day mark about their choices that they're going to make for activities and for dining. Now, when we did the webinar on this, some people said that they just do email communication about that. A lot of them said that they do consultation calls, and a lot of them do both. I will tell you, when I was booking a lot, I would send my client an email telling them what sort of options they were going to have at 60 days, meaning dining, but also Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or firework, dessert parties, that sort of thing. And I wanted them to get an understanding of what we were going to talk about on that dining call. But what I want to talk about now is Practically Magic and how I integrated Practically Magic into that communication. So if you have not signed up, you can do a 14-day trial. Because this is recorded, you could actually sign up and do this kind of right along with us today. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go into a brand new trip, and I am going to input kind of the layout of their days. So I do like telling my client which days I recommend on which parks. Now, there's some clients that are like, I don't know which days. And then I make the recommendations. Whether they follow my recommendations or not, that's up to them. But a lot of times my clients would just follow whatever I said. And I've done other workshops on things to think about when choosing which day to go to which park. So for example, I typically do not have my clients go to Epcot during the Food and Wine Festival on a weekend. There's lots more adults. There's lots more people there just in general, but there are a lot of adults partaking in beverages that may make going around the World Showcase at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday a little less desirable than, let's say, a Thursday morning. So I look at things like that, and there's other, like I said, there's other webinars on that, and I can get you those. Send me an email, jolene@practicallymagic.co, and I can make sure that you get those. But the first things first, I lay out their days. The next thing that I do is I will add things like their resort. And as you can see, when you sign up for Practically Magic, the things that are already in Practically Magic are all the resorts, restaurants, attractions, activities that are in Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and Universal Orlando. And so when we talk about the ease of doing this, Magic Kingdom Park is already in there. You don't have to create it, and it's going to format it for you. What you will see here is I like to give them an estimate of when that park will open for them. Some of you, if your client is staying on property, may want to put in the early entry time that you suspect, right? We don't always have park hours by the time that when we are doing at this point in the process. So I typically just input the guesstimation of when that will happen. I will change it as we get closer. So what you'll see here is I have a trip overview now, and I have some things in their itinerary. So I tell the client, this is the start of our itinerary. As we go along, I will be adding things to it. This is a mobile enabled link. You also can view it on a computer. It is just a web link that is specific to this trip. So your client has their own place where they can either view it on a computer or on their mobile phone. The next thing that I'm going to do as I'm having the conversation with my client about dining, I'm going to start inputting information. So I tell my clients when I'm having the conversation with them that I'm going to create kind of a game plan. This is important to me because I want to make sure that they understand that this is what I'm hoping to do. So this is a suggested reservation and is not confirmed, but I want to let them know what we talked about. We talked about getting Liberty Tree Tavern at 11:30 on their Magic Kingdom day, or we're going to do Chef de France on their Epcot day and we're going to try to get noon. Now, right, that may change or it may not work out. And so this is all going to be updated once we've actually done those dining reservations. And I think most of you are still doing dining reservations for your clients. That's wonderful. I think it's a great service to them. It's a great benefit to them. If you're West Coast like me, it's not such a benefit to us at 3 o'clock in the morning. But what you can see here is this is what I would send to my client prior to their dining, just so they knew. And now if you don't make your clients dining, this is something that you can send to them and say, okay, this is what I recommend, go for it. So either way, it's a great piece that you can send them without sending them everything, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So now it's after 60 days, and now I know the date and time of their dining reservation. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to put the time that we ended up getting that reservation. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to save it. And what you can see there is that now there's going to be 2 pieces of information with a time and date associated with it. And when we go over here and we look at the trip overview, you will see the things that had date and time. So not every entry is going to get pulled up into that trip overview. It is only things with a date and a time. So now they have a little bit more information, right? They have the parks that they're going to on that day, and they have what dining reservations they have, which is great. Now, we have the next part of this process, right? You have final payment. And I talked to most of you, or many people on the webinar, where a lot of the itinerary communication happens between final payment and send off. And I do want to mention follow-up here. Follow-up we aren't going to talk about today because it's not itinerary related. I promise that we will talk about the marketing stuff some other time and the follow-up some other time. But today we're just focused on itineraries. So final payment and send off, between those two, that's when I think most of you do your creation of your itineraries. The great thing about Practically Magic is I'm able to send all of that information that I've already showed you, all the information about what park they're going to and their dining. I can send that before, and then adding the kind of nuts and bolts, you'll see how I do this. Now, I have saved an entire day. So this is my Practically Magic Animal Kingdom day. This is going to be ride by ride. I know some of you do not do ride by ride, and I want to talk about that too, because you don't have to do ride by ride for this to be good information to your client. So you can see here, this is specific information about how to make your first lightning lanes. Next, you'll see I still have that 8 a.m. Animal Kingdom. I may pull that out because I have an early entry and I don't want to duplicate that. But we will talk about park hours in another, we can talk about park hours in a little bit. But what you'll see here is this is also, we have to change this date because this day was pulled in from another date that I had saved. So we have to do a little bit of redating things to make sure that we have the correct information there. But next you'll see this Tusker House is in the wrong order. And there's 2 ways you can do this. You can move all of the entries around it, or you can just pull the date and time from it temporarily. I just cut the time off, and then I'll drag that down to where I want it instead of dragging all the other ones up. And then I will re-add the date and time to this. So now we have it in the place where it would fall. And as you can see, there's some quick service options. They're not going to use that for lunch, right? Or kind of breakfast because they have Tusker House. So I'll pull that down to the bottom where they would have dinner and my recommendations there. So make your next lightning lane at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This is probably not necessary, but I leave it in there because during the more high crowd levels, that may be necessary. So what I mean by that, let me be clear. So if we are talking about Peter Pan, Slinky Dog Dash, or there's definitely Jungle Cruise. There are attractions that if you're using them for your first lightning lane, we know from the data, I use thrillData.com, love that site for the data that it has, but I use that site and I know that typically Slinky Dog and like I said, Peter Pan and Jungle Cruise, those lightning lanes are typically more than 2 hours after the park opens. So I like having that, make that next lightning lane, because I do want to tell my client that they're going to be able to make another lightning lane. Odds are is that they are. Now, I'm going to tell them this is when that's not true. If your first lightning lane is prior to 2 hours after park open, you're going to be able to make another lightning lane as soon as you use that one. I'm more eloquent in my itineraries. So here we go. The next thing I'm going to show you here is this is just more of a guide. It is not a ride by ride. So I made Practically Magic Kingdom. Now, what I will say is this content is content that I made. This is not included in Practically Magic. I will be showing you a little bit more about what's included in Practically Magic and what's not. But when you see big, and this, you can see Be Our Guest was in there. It shouldn't have been in there. But when you see things with paragraphs in that entry, that is content that I created, but Practically Magic does not provide. So these are things that I created, and you can purchase these guides in the itinerary store. But you'll see like Liberty Tree Tavern, that entry would be something that would be included with Practically Magic, because all the restaurants, resorts, attractions, activities, those things are already in there. It's only if you are creating notes that are above and beyond what you would find on the Disney website. I can clarify that if you have questions on that. But you can see on the guides, I put things in like parades, fireworks, quick service recommendations, some information about Tron, right, and the virtual queue. And you can see, I can just pull this into a web link that I can supply my client. And again, you see anything with a date or a time is going to be pulled up in that trip overview, but then the nuts and bolts and some of the real detail you'll find in the guts of the itinerary. So, hope that makes sense. So your clients can really view their itineraries two different ways. You have options. You can provide them PDFs, and the other option is to provide them a mobile formatted link. And this is what it would look like on a mobile phone. It's probably a little bit wider than what you see here. I guess it depends on your phone. How old is your phone? So that you have really those two options. And to be honest, I oftentimes would send both because I don't always know. I mean, sometimes it's very obvious that someone's going to use a PDF. They're going to print it out. They're going to want to print it out and go from there. But sometimes it's not obvious, so I would give them options. So this gives you a little bit of information. This is the Practically Magic content library. Again, so you can see it. You'll also see that when you go in and you start typing, these things just automatically come up for you. This is the content that I'm talking about that is not included in Practically Magic, but is included in the park guides if you go into the itinerary store and you want that content already made for you. Many of you already have this content created, let's say in Word, and it's literally just a cut and paste into Practically Magic, and then you have it in there and you can pull it in. If you're like, Jolene, I don't have time to do that, the guide may be easier for you to just purchase. So this is the itinerary store right now. I'm working on Disneyland, and I am working also on Universal. There's lots of things that are new to Practically Magic. If you haven't been with Practically Magic or seen Practically Magic in a couple years, we have added so many features. The ability to save an entire day and bring them in, like I just showed you. Other things like we just added DAS Pass, so you can identify an attraction as a DAS Pass, and you can also put a date and time associated with it, and it would pull it up into the trip overview. So this is pre-made itineraries. This is a limited time offer for the next week. So this is going to be until February 28th of 2024. The code is February 2024. And yeah, you can either buy the guide. What I'm going to tell you is if you buy the ride by ride, all of the information that's in the guide is in the ride by ride. Now, if you don't do ride by ride, then the guide is probably all you need. That's important. So how are you communicating your knowledge? How are you communicating your benefit? This is all about making sure your client feels like you are there every step of the way, because our bread and butter really are referrals and word of mouth. And so if you can help your clients see your value and remind them of all the things that they are bringing to their vacation, this helps you become a part of their vacation story. This makes you part of when they talk about how great their vacation is, they can't help but talk about, oh, and I had this amazing travel agent and she provided me all of these ins and outs of how to do this and make sure that I was getting the lightning lanes that were the best lightning lanes for my family. And that's exactly what you want to be supplying. So you know that they are going away and feeling like you provided so much value. Prepared client is a happy client. So if you have any other questions, if you would like me to discuss anything else, also I am going to hopefully be doing some lightning lane strategy in the coming month or months, so we can really look at what are good recommendations for your clients as first lightning lanes, second lightning lanes, what can you second lightning lane and what can't you? We will be doing those together also. There's also an itinerary basics. So if you are looking to go back and just be like, okay, what's the information that I should make sure that I'm getting to my client? You can also find that there. I've also posted that on the the Travel Advisor Collaborative, not Disney. It doesn't say Disney. It's just the Travel Advisor Collaborative. And again, that's in Facebook. It's a free group. Feel free to hop in there, owners. Feel free to hop into the Disney owner. It's not Disney. The Travel Owners Collaborative. If you have questions about Practically Magic, it is $15 a month. It is $150 a month if you do it annually. So you're saving $30, basically 2 months, if you purchase it annually. So I hope this was helpful. I am so glad that you joined us, and please email me with any questions you have. Bye.